Mhm.
Welcome to another episode of Fourth Trimester Voices. Today, we're going to dive into a very important topic, a topic that deeply affects many mothers everywhere. And that is a topic of the motherhood penalty and the financial challenges that arise after having children. I'm thrilled to welcome Setu Shah, also known as the Financial Doula, to the show. Setu operates a business in Atlanta, Georgia. She's dedicated to empowering women to navigate the financial shifts that come with motherhood. She offers practical tips, strategies to alleviate the financial burden that many mothers face during this life's transition. In this episode, I really want to explore the realities that the motherhood penalty impacts, right? We all have careers, we have our household dynamics, we have, long-term goals, and we have things that we want to accomplish with our children. And a lot of us are overwhelmed when we give birth, and now we're left with these huge financial impacts. And so we really need to come up with strategies on what to do. So Sethu is going to come and talk to us and discuss actionable steps that we can take as women and advocate for ourselves so that we can be able to be financially whole, and not have to have this burden, or at least minimize the burden. So whether you're preparing for maternity leave, whether you're in the throes of it, you're thinking about having children, you're navigating the postpartum period, whatever it is, we're going to talk about it today. So Sethu, welcome to the show. I'm sorry I keep butchering your name.
You're totally fine. Thanks so much for having me. I always say my name is the hardest four-letter Indian name out there, so no biggie at all.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're a mom, and so I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you probably understand what you do, and your story must have a reason. So what is your why? Why do you do what you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. Yeah, good question. I think the why comes in many different forms. But I think the big one is that women are financially penalized, hurt, challenged, questioned, right, once they have kids. And
Mm,
it shows up in many different ways. And for me, it showed up in several different ways. It showed up in having to negotiate my own maternity leave because my company didn't have a policy. I was the first to get pregnant there.
mm,
It showed up in having to navigate medical bill challenges because of postpartum complications. It showed up in eventual job loss after I was 6 months postpartum, and having to navigate what life looks like after that and how I find the next job that will actually help work with my new lifestyle of being a mom, and caring for my family. So, there were so many ways it showed up for me. But then I heard similar stories all around me. I had a friend that was double billed for her delivery. I had another friend that actively chose to not take, the promotion at work. Another friend that decided to switch jobs and go two levels down because she just couldn't handle it all, right? I mean, there's so many things that I was hearing in terms of financial penalties or challenges that mothers were facing. And I just felt like there had to be something here to help women be a little bit more proactive, not necessarily saying I can save you every dollar or save the money that you could have been making had you stayed in that role or taken that promotion. But it's more so around mentally really preparing and saying, okay, this is what my journey is going to look like. It's okay that it's going to look like this way. And there are ways that I can combat that going into the future. So,
mm.
I think that was really what started it. That was my why. I felt the personal pain of it. And I just felt like there had to be a better way to get women more prepared for the financial changes that come. So.
Totally agree. Do you think that when you were going through pregnancy or family planning that you were thinking about the financial impacts, um, or is this something that just came out of, your experience and not doing that?
Yeah, it's funny because you go into it thinking, I've got a ton of stuff prepared. I've talked to my friends, I've asked them about their baby registries. I know my work policy in terms of maternity leave, I can navigate that. I've got some sort of childcare lined up. I have zero intention of taking a step back. We're going to make this work. It's going to be great.
Mm,
And for there are many families that that's exactly how it plays out. But for me, I think there was much more in terms of unexpected challenges that came up my way that I wasn't prepared for. I just wasn't prepared for having to navigate three childcare transitions in the first year. I wasn't prepared for having to kind of fight for more maternity leave and really show my value and go through all the loopholes to do that. I wasn't prepared for the job loss and then subsequently having to
mm,
figure out that next role that probably I would have to take several steps down to make my life work. So it was all these challenges that I just didn't anticipate. And it was one of those scenarios where, why didn't anybody tell me?
yeah.
Um, and, the subsequent impact on my mental health through all those challenges
Mm.
was what ended up being the hardest for me, and really I think what drew me to build something like Financial Doula. So
Wow. Speak a little bit about that, because you have a baby, and then you're trying to recover from your baby, and it sounds like in the midst of all of that, now you're having to deal with, the financial bills and also returning to the workplace and, work transitions. What impact did that make in your mental health, and how did you navigate that during that time?
yeah, it's such a good question. It's funny, like obviously finances is in the name of the company. I'm talking about finances,
Yeah.
but I always say it's not necessarily about the money. It's not about the total amount of money I could have been making
Mm,
or the dollar figure. It's really about the experience and like the behavioral dynamics around how my finances and my career path were impacted once I became a mother.
mm,
And so for me, it really truly felt like I was having to navigate 100,000 more things on the life side of things
mm,
compared to what I was doing before I had a child. And it just, all of that kind of added up to being like, well, I just don't have enough time to kind of do all the things I was doing before as it related to my career. And that's the struggle. That's the guilt aspect that I think so many women deal with constantly. And, you hear the stories of working mothers just being completely burnt out. And then, you hear the stories of the guilt on the stay-at-home mother side because they had to take a step back, right? So there's this constant dynamic of guilt as it relates to balancing your career and your home life.
yeah.
And um, I just felt like not only are your finances impacted maybe negatively or you're challenged in that way during that period. But I also felt like you could spin it on your head and say, finances actually can be an asset for you if you
Mhm.
prepare, if you budget, if you figure out how you can use it to help manage your time better and create, a better situation in terms of, the workload on your plate. So it's a mix of kind of not only how do you educate folks ahead of time about how your finances may be challenged, but also how do you use your finances to your advantage so that you
Mm.
can make the most of your time.
Yeah. And I think the biggest, takeaway really from the conversation is just the preparation piece. You said it best. You said most women, like, you're like, why didn't anybody tell me, right? Women are not having these conversations. And one of the things that we're not talking about too is just like the career shifts, right? Like after you give birth, you're thinking, do I even want to go back to work? I just want to sit at home and take care of my child, right? However, everybody doesn't have that luxury because, finances, right? And so you may have a household where two people have to work, right? And so in order to maintain the mortgage or the rent, you're going to have two people. But, here you are now, you've given birth. 6 weeks now, you have to start thinking about going back to work. And many women during that time just don't even know if they want to go back and do what they did before they were pregnant. And does this career fit me now, or does this career fit with my goals of motherhood? Talk about breastfeeding at work if you work in a place that doesn't support that. And so then you end up struggling with that and wanting to leave work altogether. So I
Sure.
think, just what women are going through in that postpartum period, we don't have these conversations. And so I just think let's figure out ways to prepare women. Let's just talk about like what should be the first thing that you're thinking about, and when should you be thinking about the impact of finances in the postpartum period? When should that conversation start?
Sure, sure. Absolutely. And I think that's really the mission of financial doula is preparation,
Mm,
education, clarity as you grow your family as it comes to your finances. And the way I do it is I actually use a budget or a spreadsheet, if you will, find your
mm,
personal finances as the mechanism to actually answer some very higher level questions around values and priority and how you envision your life once you have kids, and
mm,
really having those challenging conversations around, do we want one parent to stay home to raise our kid or not? Do we want to eventually put our kids in private school versus public school? Like,
mm,
how much do we value education from that standpoint, right? I mean, these are tough questions that you have to navigate with your partner, if you have one, or with family members that are supporting you, to really understand, like, what do we value as a family, and how do we then make our finances to fit into that?
mm,
Um, and often what I've learned and what I've seen with the couples I've worked with is that couples themselves may not be fully aligned on a lot of these value questions. And so a lot of my work starts even before helping with a budget or even before educating. It's around, what are your beliefs around money? What's your spending style today? And how do you and your partner or the loved ones that are part of your finances, how do you guys think about finances together, and how are you managing it today? So I really start early in that process and help them think around the behavioral dynamics and sort of financial therapy, if you will, before digging into, okay, this is what the first year of your baby's life is going to cost.
And this is happening before they get pregnant or during the pregnancy?
It really depends on when the couples find me or I find them. But I mean, I love to kind of do it before the baby comes, so whether it's before they're pregnant or during pregnancy, but the more proactive you can be before baby arrives, the higher chances you have of success of seeing your budget through and how you envision your life. Once baby comes, it gets a little bit harder. It's not too late, but that's when you're kind of in the throes of
Yeah.
caring for baby and figuring out all the things.
Yeah.
Um, so,
What comes to mind to me though is, most moms don't even know the transition they want to make later, right? And so
right.
you may be a career woman right now and thinking, okay, when I deliver, we're going to make sure we have daycare. We're going to make sure that, we're budgeting for a babysitter. I'm going to go back to work. But what if, after you deliver, you're like, I'm not going back to work. I'm staying home for another year, and
Yeah.
that's not something that you may have planned for. So how do you account for these sort of last minute changes because life,
Mhm.
hits you? So I don't know if you have those conversations.
I love that question because I would admit that that's kind of what happened to me. I mean, yes, it was sort of forced upon maybe through the job loss, and it made me really rethink things. But I would say at the end of the day, it was like, what do I value most right now in this period of time? It's raising my child and being there for those moments, right? And I
Mm,
think a lot of women feel that way whether they work or not. But the way I kind of help couples and especially moms get ahead of this proactively before they even know what they're going to feel once baby
mm,
comes is creating scenarios. So I say, here's a scenario if you both continue to work, what this looks like, how your finances will be impacted, how much childcare will cost you depending on which one you choose. But plan B, if one parent decides to take a step back because you want a little bit more time or you have feelings that have changed, this is what your finances will look like after that in that first year. So it's kind of like, even if they don't go down that path, or they do, if they change their mind, it's okay, but at least they have the transparency of what that means for their day to day and their finances.
okay. And let's talk about, who these services are for, right? What if you are a mom who, or dad who works and your income, you're low earning. And so you already are thinking about trying to catch up once you guys have the child. And so now kind of thinking about, staying home and all these other options, is that even an option if both of you are low earners? How can somebody who's making less than minimum wage every year, be able to take advantage of financial planning in order to build the life that they want.
Yeah, it's an excellent question. And you could either see it as low income or you could even see it as folks living paycheck to paycheck, which could
Yeah.
be high income earners. And that's a really tricky situation to be in when you have a baby because, I mean, your first year expenses alone could be 20, 30,000, depending on hospital bills and things that, come your way.
Mhm.
And so I would say that's another reason why I love catching people earlier rather than later,
Yeah.
because I help them create that emergency savings plan. I actually always recommend separate from your regular emergency savings, create a baby fund and,
Yeah.
kind of save into that. So, if I'm able to catch them earlier, that would be ideal. If I'm not, what I kind of help folks through, and I've had a couple clients like this, I just help them get, kind of take the hose and burn that
Yeah.
fire, burn that fire out and just help them kind of maintain just something right now, right? Get them
Yeah.
through this period. And then once they feel like they're up top and kind of can breathe again with all the expenses, then whether it's a dollar, $5, let's start rebuilding a savings situation where you can have a little bit more flexibility and really live the life that you want to live.
Yeah.
But it really, I mean, it all comes down to your relationship with money. Can you control certain aspects of how you spend on things, eating out, shopping? Like there's certain things. And again, some people may not even have the luxury for any of that. But if there is some wiggle room there, how do we kind of control that behavior around finances and turn things around? So
Yeah. Yeah. What resources do you have for parents who, once they go into the postpartum period, maybe their child has significant disability or significant illness after, giving birth. And so now they're facing the challenge of one, they're unable to work, and two, the child is having significant medical bills. And so, how do parents navigate these financial struggles in the midst of, chaos when things are just not as they were planned?
yeah, it's a great question. And that's really one of the most challenging situations because your hands are tied. And, unfortunately, a lot of employers in America there's just not enough sympathy there for those
Yeah.
situations. I think first and foremost, and this is kind of what I like to call one of my niche areas of expertise, just
Mm,
given my background as a healthcare consultant. I really, really do make sure that they've got good health insurance,
hmm.
whether it's through their spouse or their partner, or they're using government funds like Medicaid or something like that to really ensure that they're not having to pay extra out of pocket
Yeah.
for the care for their child. So I think that's number one, and kind of getting that squared away in terms of like your regular income and your job. It really does come down to each situation, right? I mean, do you have a spouse that can kind of support and you guys can work with that one income, for a certain period of time? And I help them think about what is that period of time that you can live on one income or savings.
Yeah.
So again, it's really just a math game of, how much can you work with based off what you have. If you're a single mom, it just becomes harder, right? I mean, those are true trade-offs that you have to make in
Yeah.
terms of I've got to stick to this 9 to 5, and I will recommend employers that kind of have a little bit more flexibility and leniency towards those kind of situations. So some of the bigger corporations that have great benefits that typically hire people with disabilities or with big families, things like that. Those are the types of things that I'll recommend and try to help out with. And then there's of course government assistance. So I've helped one client actually kind of navigate WIC, which is Women, Infants, and Children
Mm.
program. And that's where you can get diapers and formula and resources there. So yeah, it really just depends on what's your situation, your income level. And that's why I always say finances are so individualized and personal. And so yes, I offer broader education on navigating childcare and maternity leave. But if you really want to sit down and understand how do I make it work for me, it requires one-to-one sort of let's let's kind of coach each other. Let me hear your side. I can help you kind of figure out the math game. But it's really individualized and it's really personal to the family. So,
Yeah, yeah. I think most of us probably grew up in families where we were not taught about financial planning. And so this is going to be one of those things where it's like convincing people like you have to do this, especially in our society in America where we don't value, time off. With our kids, we literally are shifting women to go back to work within 6 weeks, 12 weeks, of having their child. So there isn't that value on postpartum care, on holistic postpartum care, healing your body, healing your mind, staying home to be with your child. And so there isn't that assistance like in other countries. And so, shifting our moms' brains to say, guys, before you even have a child, think about financial planning, And so I just wonder how these conversations go for you. Are you finding that people who already have that knowledge are seeking out assistance with you, or is it that people are referred to you? I just wonder because I'm thinking to myself,
yeah,
it took me a long time to get a financial planner, and now I
sure.
mean we meet all the
Yeah,
time, and it's literally, it's a necessity. So I just wonder
yeah.
how we can just get that message out to moms to be like, this is really not an option. Like you need to sit down with the
Mhm.
financial planner, and go through all these things to be able to build a life that you want.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love the way you phrase it, right? It's really not an option.
Right.
And that's, I mean, I would die on that hill, right? Like that's the message that I want to get out is I want to make financial planning for parenthood just as normal and common as taking prenatal vitamins while you're pregnant,
Mm,
right? Like this should be something that you add to your list and you just do.
absolutely.
And and I think it like the what I'm saying to your point, what I'm saying now and what we've seen for years is we're all being reactive to it, right? We're saying, oh well, I've got 6 to 12 weeks, I'm going to take it, and then oh crap, like I've got to, it's just like this reactive
Yeah.
process that everybody's going through, and that's why I'm trying to shift it on its head and say, you've got it, like having a baby is probably one of the best reasons ever in your life to get your finances in order,
Yeah.
and that's precisely why you should do it before, so those are that's kind of the mantra and the messaging that I try to put out there. The other is that like, finances can bring a lot of like they bring up a lot of feelings of shame for people,
Yeah.
right? Like it's not we don't have good early education around personal finance. You're not necessarily taught about it in school. And so, a lot of people, I would say almost 100% of people probably don't always make the right decisions around finances. Like there's going to be mistakes there. And
Mm,
so kind of also hitting on the messaging of it's okay. Like, we've all made the mistakes, but now is the best time to kind of turn it around for you, your growing family, your future. And the other aspect of what I offer is I'm not like I don't tout being a financial advisor or financial planner. I actually can't. I have an MBA, I have a
yeah.
background in personal finance, but I'm also not this just like $7 self-help personal finance book, right?
Exactly.
I'm somewhere in this middle that I can help you at an affordable price
Yeah.
get your finances, at least get like in this phase of your life, really get it going, set you up for the future. And then, I can also relate to you from the aspect of being a mother and having gone through it. So I think those are some of the things that I try to kind of push out in terms of brand and messaging as well, so that folks know it's like you don't just have to go to a financial planner, you don't just have to get a self-help book, right? Like
Mhm.
there is some middle there. So
Absolutely. No, that's great. That's good to know. Do you offer any payment plans or any options for parents who are looking to use your services?
yeah, absolutely. So, it's either you can pay one time, you can pay hourly,
Okay.
or, yeah, or it could be, but month out, depending on whichever package we choose.
Great.
So,
And can you work outside of Georgia?
yeah, I mean, technically I'm a small business LLC. Mostly a virtual business right now.
Okay.
So yeah, and the one thing, the disclaimer that I'll always say is, and I kind of mentioned it before, I'm not a certified financial planner or
Mhm.
analyst. I'm not going to sit down and help you pick investments in your
Yes.
portfolio. Like that's just
Or
not,
get me disability insurance.
yeah, no, I mean, and I have lots of connections to folks and I do,
Yes.
I can refer you out. But really my goal is you're about to have a baby. Let's look at kind of your personal financial picture today. Let's see what that next year is going to look like and how much you need to save. And then, for the next 3 to 5 years, what will that look like? And so it's truly just a personal finance consultation for this period of your life.
Okay.
So
That makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
I do have one last question that's been, sitting in my brain. There's probably a mom who's listening to this show right now and is looking at her hospital bills, right? And she thought that her
Yeah.
insurance was going to cover her baby, and now she has a whole bill that says, your delivery costs $5,000, $10,000, and she is literally post like a couple of weeks postpartum, and she's being hit with the bill. What does she do? Where does she start with this bill?
Yeah, yeah. I've heard that scenario so many times because our health insurance system is the way it is. But the one of the things that people actually kind of forget often is just
Mm,
adding their baby to their insurance. So that could be like a quick fix. Like that's the first thing that I always check and try to
yeah.
remember. Did I after I delivered my baby, like did I actually add my baby to my policy? If
Mm,
I hadn't, then like I'm maybe being directly billed for their bill. Because again, when you deliver a baby, the hospital creates a bill for you, a claim for you, and a claim for your baby. So there is some separation there. The other thing I would do is always ask for an itemized bill for your provider. Now, there's a lot of hospital jargon on there, like it can
mm.
be really confusing, but sometimes it's very obvious, like it's a C-section and you did not have a C-section, right? So like,
Facts. Or
yeah,
double billed. I've heard people being
yeah,
double billed for things.
exactly. Yeah. So I think, trying to get a hold of that and look into that. But, I wish I had a better answer, but I really think the most success you'll see in navigating a situation like this is calling the insurance company and
Yeah,
really just staying on top of it. And it's literally the last thing you want to be doing. It truly is.
right.
But I think talking to them is the way you're kind of going to get through to better understand like, is this my issue? Like, was
Yeah,
it just not covered, or what's kind of going on there?
yeah,
Um, and they have payment plans as well. So
absolutely.
if it comes down to being your out of pocket expense, you can kind of work with them to figure that
Yeah.
out. So
And I will say for moms too who are struggling with, postpartum depression or other issues postpartum, this is really not a priority right now. I promise you this is not going to hit your credit in 3 weeks. Okay.
yeah,
It takes a long
yeah,
time for these bills to hit your credits, and many hospitals don't even report to credit bureaus anymore. They just kind of hound you over the phone. So I would say that if this is causing you a lot of stress looking at this bill, just put it aside right now and focus on yourself, because honestly, that can be
sure.
overwhelming. Especially if you're kind of, type A, or you're someone who has your finances intact and now you're being hit with a $5,000 bill. You're thinking, I have to take care of this right now. If it's going to
Right.
cause you distress, I'm telling you, mom, put it to the side and deal with this after you get through, a postpartum period. Look at it after 3 months, look at it after 4 months. It's not going to hit your credit right away. So I don't know who I'm freeing, don't know who I'm releasing, but definitely some words of advice from us here.
Absolutely. And I'll just add really quickly, there's states out there that have limitations on
Mhm.
like the days past when hospitals can actually bill you. And so if your state says it's been 30 days and you're receiving a bill after that, that's actually something that, you can fight and you don't have to pay. So yeah, I mean, I would look up kind of the regulations in your state, but to your point, this is not in the grand scheme of things. This is something that you can resolve over time. Doesn't need to be dealt with immediately. Um, yes, it's stressful, but it doesn't have to be, in the short term. So
Absolutely. Well,
yeah,
great conversation.
yeah,
I just love everything that we discuss, and definitely it's going to help a mom out there. I do want to ask, how can our listeners find you if they want to book a consultation with you? Where can they reach
yeah.
you?
Yeah, absolutely. My website is www.financialdoula.com. So pretty easy. And then you can just click the schedule button right there. The first consultation is free. So yeah, definitely please sign up anytime and we'd love to chat with you. And then my main social media handle is Instagram. It's at Financial Doula. So we'd love for you to follow me and get some tips and tricks there as well.
All right. And if someone didn't hear that, the first consultation is free. So there should be no excuse, ladies. Definitely get on this call and ask all your questions, all the advice. And so it is crucial. We know our lives change after we have babies. If you're in it right now, you know. If you've seen other moms change careers, lose jobs, all of that, unfortunately, are the realities of living in a country that does not support paid medical leave for having a baby.
Yeah.
Reality.
Yeah.
And Setu, if you can just leave us with words of wisdom, just one piece of
Yeah.
advice that you would give our moms who are listening.
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote a good one yesterday in that survey, and I forgot now. But um, the big thing I would say is that you should never feel guilty for asking for help in your postpartum period, and so much so that you should actually budget. You should actually like in your budget put in that I'm going to get help during my postpartum period, whether it's
Mm.
postpartum doula, lactation consultant, whether it's a housekeeper, a chef, you name it. But I think that the stigma around getting help after postpartum, it's turning around, right? Because we are recognizing that women need more help. And it's okay to raise your hand and say, I need help. And hey, actually, I'm going to pay for it because I budgeted for it. So,
Love
yeah,
that. Love
yeah.
that. All right. Well, it has been lovely speaking with you today. And
Right.
thank you so much. We'll chat
Yeah.
later.
Thank you, Dr. Talk to you soon.
All
Here.
right. If you live in the Atlanta, Georgia area, I want you to consider working with EM Care to You. And this is my concierge medical company, and we offer comprehensive care for mothers postpartum. I started the company because I saw a need. I was taking care of so many postpartum moms that had a need, and I wanted to provide a solution for their problem. So at EM Care to You, we provide access to in-home lactation support, pelvic floor physical therapy, mental health support, and more. You can learn more about this at emcaretou.com. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Fourth Trimester Voices. If you have any questions about today's episode or you want to share your story, please email us at fourthtrimestervoices@gmail.com. My name is Dr. Choa, and it's been lovely talking with you all today. Take care.